Hello guys. Welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving to our today's first story. About OP's traumatic life in school and how he baited his bully with the wrong answers. Now he is living a very miserable life. And still he is blaming OP for destroying his life. Now story. Last week, I saw the guy who spent his whole high school career making me miserable. He did not look good. And I did not feel sorry for him, not even a little bit. He has not changed even a little bit since high school. He is still a bitter person who cannot work hard for himself. I have just bought a car for myself. One of the most expensive ones because I worked hard for everything I have. He was in a broken down car next to me, and when the light turned red I saw him. We only exchanged a few words. But what he had to say to me was that I was the reason his life was so shitty. And he was now married to a crackhead. To be honest, maybe I played a part in his downfall, but I think you need to know the full story before you make any judgment. I am a 23M, and throughout high school, my bully Mark 23M made my life a living hell. I was a nerd, a teacher's pet, and everything that Mark used to call me from the time that I started high school. He made sure to torture me. I could not understand why he picked on me. But he hated me a lot. It started with small things. Calling me names, tripping me, and putting notes in my locker. I reported it to my mom and then was called in by the principal. I was told that he would never do such a thing to me again, and they called in his parents. His dad was quick to say that it was not bullying. And boys would be boys, but I could see that his mom was disappointed. The next thing I knew, they cornered me after school and beat me up. They said that if I told anyone again, they would make my life hell. He said that because of me, his mother grounded him. And he was going to make my whole life miserable. And from that day on I was his human punching bag. And I did not tell anyone ever again. I cannot count the number of incidents that I experienced with him. I went through so much humiliation and self-hate. I did not even have any friends because everyone was scared of him and did not want to be associated with me. I hid every bruise from my parents, knowing that they were so stressed already from other things. I came from a very simple home, and we struggled with money growing up. Mark made it a point to call me peasant and make fun of my clothes, which were mostly bought from thrift stores. He attacked every single part of my life, and I felt like there was no escape from him for a very long time. Like any other bully. Because I was good at school, he made me do his homework and assignments. Sometimes, he would only bother me for half a day if I got him an A. The guy was an idiot, but everyone was scared of him. So no one ever snitched on him. My teachers noticed that something was wrong and tried to get me to speak up. But I was so ashamed and scared. Even if he got suspended, he knew where I stayed. I was not safe anywhere. He took my lunch money, my assignments, the classic bullying stuff. That went on for a very long time, and it became the new normal for me. I cannot recall every incident that happened, but there are a few that were the worst, which I will never forgive him for. When I was 16 years old, I had not properly gone through puberty because I was a late bloomer. I was still small, but my bullies had grown twice bigger. I ate lunch in the bathroom away from everyone else. But one day, he followed me into the bathroom with some friends. I tried to lock myself in the bathroom, but they were too strong. And they pulled me out. They called me names as usual while I tried to beg and plead. I was prepared for a beating, but he had worse planned for me. They carried me out of the bathroom and took me to the cafeteria. Then, in front of everyone, they pulled down my pants and everyone saw me. What was worse was that the girl I was crushing on also saw me. They all burst into laughter and started calling me droopy pants. When I tried to pull the back up, they held my hands while I screamed for them to stop. From that day on, people called me that nickname. They would make as if they were dropping their pants whenever they were near me, and then they would laugh. I will never forget the rage that went through me when they did that. That was strike one. The second biggest one, where they once again played with my emotions, was the straw that broke the camel's back and that made me decide that enough was enough. They had eased up for a while, focusing on bullying kids in the lower grade. The nickname I had gained was now no longer popular, and it was at the end of my sophomore year. I forgot to mention that Mark was captain of the football team, and it was common knowledge that he was going to get a scholarship from a prestigious university. His grades were also good. Anyways, it was on one of the quieter days that he came running to me holding his phone. He told me that his cousin who worked at the hospital told him that my mother had just been brought into the hospital because she had been involved in a terrible car crash. I was so scared, and I tried to call my dad, but his phone did not go through. Then, to my surprise, Mark offered to drive me to the hospital, which is quite a distance from the school. I did not think twice, and I agreed to the ride. The only thing that I had in my mind was that my mother was dead. Mark furthermore told me that his cousin said that she died on the scene. Another thing was that I had a very important math competition that I had been practicing for a long time. I was supposed to be writing in an hour, but that was not important when it came to my mother. I got out into the hospital parking lot and went to the reception. They told me that my mother was not admitted there and maybe I had come to the wrong hospital. My whole world caved in, and I could not believe that she was gone just like that. I went out into the parking lot, where I found Mark and his friends. I did not even know where they came from. I told him what happened, but he punched me in the stomach. I asked him why he was doing that and begged him to help me find my mom. Then they all started shouting, "Mommy's boy." They laughed at me while beating me up. Then he told me that it was all a prank. They just wanted me to miss my competition because I was a nerd. And they just wanted me to be miserable. I was glad that my mother was alive. Most importantly, but this was too much. They were now involving my family and they had to stop. That prank hurt my emotions, and the beating on top of that was the worst part. They left me alone in the parking lot and drove away. I walked home as I had already missed the math competition, which was very important to me. My mental health suffered for a very long time after that, and I pretended to be sick for a week so that I could not go to school. Every time they bullied me and made me feel less human, my heart broke and I hated myself even more for failing to defend myself. That last prank was so sick, and it hurt me more than any other prank he had pulled on me. I told my parents that I had fallen off my bike when I showed up at home looking like that, but they were reluctant to believe me. I knew they wished they could do something, but my school was the only public school in the town. The local private school did not ever give out scholarships, so I could not transfer there. After that prank, I decided that I was going to hurt him where it hurts most, his grades. And if I hurt his grades, his football career would be over. Then his chances of a scholarship were going to be ruined. Maybe this seems like an extreme approach to things. I could have hung on till the end of high school, but I was very angry and fed up with him. I went back to school, and everything went back to normal, or as normal as it could be. He continued to abuse me, but it did not hurt as much as it used to. I went back to school every day knowing that one day he was going to get a taste of his own medicine. It was still a suicide mission and it could have gone very badly for me. Looking back, I should have told my parents once again and insisted that we go to the police. Maybe with enough evidence he could have been arrested. I do not know what would have happened, but I patiently waited for my exams. We had exams a few weeks later, and along with the exams were the last-minute assignments. He usually did pretty averagely on his exams, and because his assignments were done by yours truly, he always passed. This time, when he came to me with his stack of assignments, I messed them up. I plagiarized most of his writing assignments directly from the textbooks. Our school had a no-copying policy, and if you copied, you got 0%, where answers were required. I gave him the wrong ones. Some of the assignments were half done by him and some of the answers were correct. I told him that they were wrong, and because I was the smartest kid in my grade, he did not doubt me. I heard how he bragged that he had a bright future in football. And to be honest, he probably would have. But life is not always fair, is it? Our final exams came, and we wrote them. Then, when we had to get our results, he failed. I did not care if he was going to kill me for what I had done or not. It did not matter. His dad was one of the scariest men I had ever seen, and on the day that he got his results, I saw that the man was furious. The bad marks that he had gotten led to him failing the majority of the subjects, and he had to repeat the year. He lost his position on the football team, his popularity, and his friends. I guess no one wanted to hang out with a person with a shitty personality if he was just a nobody. I was not naive. I knew that it was my fault that he had to repeat after failing. I also knew that he would try to get revenge on me. The great part was that I was able to avoid him because we did not have the same classes anymore, and because of the size of our school, we had different lunch blocks. With his attention off me, I had a normal senior year and I graduated as valedictorian. My life and his ended up going in two different directions. I went off to college and started my own business while still studying. I ended up working for myself and employing those who used to look down on me. The ones who look on or participate to look cool are just as bad as those who do the actual bullying. I did have a lot of scars emotionally from everything that I went through in high school and a problem with self-confidence. But once I got to college, Where most people mind their own business and I was rewarded for my nerdiness, I slowly healed. As for him, his life went downhill. The next year something happened that made me pity him for the first and only time in my life. His mother passed away in a car crash on my first break from college. It sent him further into a dark spiral of drinking. He became a very angry person, starting fights in bars every other day, and I could see that he was very hurt. I could not help remembering how I felt when I thought my mother was gone for good, and I can say that I know exactly how I felt. He did not show up to his mother's funeral. I was there though. She was a good woman. I later heard that his dad kicked him out of the house. Surprisingly, she raised such a violent side, but maybe he got that from his dad. Anyways, that was the last time I saw him. I only heard about him and what he has been up to. Yes, I was the reason that he was forced to stay back a year, but what he did afterward was up to him. He did not put any effort into the class and was constantly drinking and skipping class. I heard about him through old classmates. He did not graduate high school, and he was expelled after beating up a freshman who refused to do his homework for him. Yeah, he dropped down to the lowest of the low. Then, he got some girl pregnant and started working crappy jobs. I saw him a few times when I was in town, but he ignored me. Maybe it was because he was ashamed of where he had landed compared to me. But I was glad that he left me alone. I was still scared of him and what he could do to me if he saw me, other than on holidays. I did not have to run into him. There is no place in town he has not worked, by the grocery stores, picking up trash. And then there were reports that he was selling illegal substances. The girl he married is in rehab every other week. My older sister works there, and she told me everything about her. They are both abusive to each other. And his wife turns to cocaine because she is a regular user. The child was taken away by social services long ago because of their inability to provide, and the terrible conditions in their trailer. I know this because I live in the next town managing my own business, and I always visit my parents in the next street town over. I should feel guilty, right? Because my deceit was the one that led him to go down that dark hole. Maybe it is my fault that he lost that scholarship and his position on the football. But then, he got all those things because of the assignments that I did for him. He was not honest in the beginning and should have repeated a grade a long time ago. But that is a tough pill for him to swallow. So, when I saw him last week, driving my car, and he gave me a dirty look and said I was showing off because I thought I was better, I told him the truth, that I had worked hard for everything that I had. He had gotten himself into the mess of a life that he had because of his own life choices. For every night that I went to sleep crying, every time I thought of killing myself, every lie I told my parents when he beat me up, I got my revenge. As the saying goes, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And that is the reason I did not feel guilty about flashing my car in front of him and hopefully leaving dust in his face. Bullies like him have taunted and humiliated so many people, and they continue to do so no matter what. And that is why I will never feel an ounce of pity for him. Now, here is the end of first story. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think about OP and his actions. Or you can also share your stories in the comments section. I would love to read them. So before moving to the second story, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories. Now, moving to our today's final story. From a while ago, with malicious compliance on the part of OP's manager took against his company policies. Now story. It was just after 2000. And as I was working in IT, there had been a busy year leading up to the millennium. Now everyone was looking to get back to normal. The company had other plans for us and decided to make a third of the IT staff redundant. In my team of 12, this meant 4 of us. This wasn't a problem, as even though I had just moved into IT a few years earlier, the job market was booming and getting a new job would be easy. This HR move was a bit of a surprise as we were very busy. Lots of the routine projects had been put on hold, so lots of catching up. But whatever, they knew best. Redundancy with this company offered a month's salary per year of service. A way over the legal minimum. They were offering me a year's salary tax-free to find a better paying job elsewhere. An offer that would be hard to say no to. But unfortunately, they were not going to ask. The way redundancy works for this company in the UK is that all the occupants of the role are ranked by very carefully selected criteria. And the lowest ranked are goners. The way the criteria are selected is to make them very subjective and capable of withstanding any legal challenge that might lead to an industrial tribunal. If there was one thing HR hated above all, it was legal hassles. criteria would be things like expected to be able to contribute well in other divisions of the company and other such evidence-free bollocks. Why this weird approach from HR? It isn't as daft as it may appear. When trying to reduce headcount, the options in the UK are natural wastage, offering early retirement, offering voluntary redundancy or compulsory redundancies. In a team role in IT at this time, what tends to happen is that nobody is old enough to retire, and offering early retirement was expensive as it was based on a generous company policy. Offering voluntary redundancy means the deadwood stays. Forcing a selection process stops the good people from leaving no redundancy money and allows getting rid of the poor performers. Or, at least, that was the plan. Anyway, my manager had been told he was being made redundant, which was a bit of a tactical error. He wasn't adhering to the company line as strictly as he might have been having the circumstances been different. He gathered us together and asked who wanted to go. 4 of us volunteered. So all was good and everyone on the team was happy. My manager, maliciously complying with the ranking exercise, duly ranked us by the contrived criteria, but interpreted to our ends and not the company's. These rankings were passed to HR. Processes were run, runes scried, oracles consulted, and ultimately decisions made. Lo and behold, the gang of 4 came bottom of the pack because of the extremely subjective nature of the criteria. Nobody could prove the rankings were wrong. My manager then let the team know who was staying and who was going, as was right and proper. And we each got bye-bye loser or you're still on board letters from HR. That wasn't the end of it though. HR somehow twigged they were being stitched up by my manager. Comparing the people leaving with the people with the highest annual appraisal scores was an exact fit. HR went into recovery mode and tried briefly to revoke the redundancies. This would have been legal except for one thing. It had been announced that we were bottom of the selection criteria. Continued employment would have been unthinkable as we were declared least competent to do the job. And they still wanted rid of 1/3. If they had insisted, this would have been potentially constructive dismissal. Either for the gang of 4, this is when the employer makes life untenable for the employee, such as saying you are rubbish at your job and they want rid of you. Or, if another 4 were selected, then obviously the process was flawed, and they claim unfair dismissal, a company not complying with its processes. Considering the entire rigmarole, particularly the selection criteria ruse, was designed to avoid legal hassles, they were painted into a corner and had to let the 4 of us go. So thanks Dave for playing the system so well to get the outcome the employees and not HR wanted. Edit. It was, as expected, easy to get a new job in those halcyon days. I had decided to take 3 months off, but a really attractive role came up. I started 5 weeks later and have been there ever since. Eventually, talking to my friends who stayed, this round of redundancies was the precursor to eventual outsourcing. This was very much in vogue back then. About 2 to 3 years later, the overly slimmed down organization was transferred, called TUPE in the UK, transfer of undertaking. Protection of employment to an outsourcer. A bullet dodged there. TUPE means you transfer on your current pay and conditions and you will rot with that salary, etc., until it is worse than your new employer's standard T&CS. No pay rises, bonuses, increased holiday entitlement, nothing. This also ends in another the deadwood stays situation, as anyone who can get another job will as soon as the market moves past them. Now, here is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know your opinion about this story in the comments section. And what do you think about these redundancy laws? So before leaving, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories.